Hello, my name is Nikolaidou, and I'm a senior lecturer of architecture and design at the University of West of England, UK. This presentation is looking at the relationship between the body and the space, where a continuous exchange of information can be facilitated with the use of biological materials and wearables. The link between architecture and the body has long been established, not simply on an ergonomic level, but also in terms of how architecture and its users can work together to better experience the places and the buildings that we inhabit. For example, Peter Zumthor's Thermval Spa offers various sensory experiences, taking into consideration the body and the architectural space. Many designers have demonstrated that the body can become part of a wider system, but not in a way that its user works autonomously with the building as one experience. This interdisciplinary work focuses on how an adaptive system that responds to the changing environmental conditions of the space and the input of each user simultaneously can be developed so that the individual needs of the users are better facilitated and accommodated. The presentation will discuss the development of an autonomous homeostatic system that uses wearable as an epidermic layer or skin between the body and the space based on biological systems, complexity theory, emergence, and sustainability. Whilst designing buildings for people, architects have tended to take an ergonomically centered approach to integrating human behavior and comfort into building design. This assumes that the human remains a constant, but the building, through its design, can be changed. Precedents do exist in nature for the way in which living organisms and the environment synchronize. Structurally complex living organisms have been adapting to the environments for millions of years. Biology can therefore supply examples of growth systems and materials that can inspire flexible, responsive, and adaptable architectural solutions. The possibilities that can emerge from a purposeful knowledge between biology and architecture could lead us thinking of a single biotechnological whole or system. The world we inhabit is a construct of systems. Architects, scientists, engineers have been using generative techniques to develop systems with some degree of autonomy. The academic literature on the subject of systems is extensive. According to Westock, 2004, complexity theory focuses on the effects produced by the collective behavior of many single units that interact with each other. The complex is heterogeneous, with many varied parts that have multiple connections between them, and the different parts behave differently, although they are not independent. Kamas in 2003 discusses that the emergent properties are features of a system that arise unexpectedly from interactions among the system's components. An emergent property cannot be understood by simply examining in isolation the properties of a system's components, but it requires a consideration of the interaction among the system components. The systems that are based on the concept of emergence, complexity, self-organization are characterized by a bottom-up approach. Therefore, the research study is looking to develop a self-organizing second skin to the body, which is the wearable, that will be part of the system and possess control mechanisms that will use the feedback, input and output from the environment and the body to regulate its functions. This will be achieved with a bottom-up approach by the collective behavior of the units that interact with each other, and it will feature emergent properties. The wearable will be reactive and responsive, with the ability to sense changes in the flow of the external environment and within itself, and to respond by modifying or changing some aspects of behavior of its systems appropriately. Homeostasis refers to the capacity to self-regulate to an internal norm in order to sustain comfort and life, both of which occur with narrow parameter ranges. It refers to the ability to sense changes externally or internally and to offer positive or negative feedback to restore and maintain balance. The study aims to look at how the wearables can respond to the environment and the body homeostatically to regulate temperature or water vapor, oxygen, carbon dioxide. Many designers have developed wearables that are responsive. Behnaz Farahi developed the Iridescence project, which is an extension of our sensory experience of the world. The wearable can sense the movement and emotions of other people. It is equipped with a facial tracking camera and an array of 200 rotating keels. The custom-made keels flip their colors and start to make patterns in response to the movement of the onlookers as well as their facial expressions. The project explores the use of living material for the development of the wearables. According to Esteves 2005, the new ecologic, environmental, architectural design does not imply creating in nature, but creating with nature. Rachel Armstrong is using for her design pre-protocells that, although they are not living cells, they exhibit a number of interesting programmable physical and chemical properties that appear lifelike. For the Photosynthetica project, Claudia Pasquero and Marco Poletto develop an algae cladding system that captures CO2 from the atmosphere and stores it in real time, approximately 1 kilo of CO2 per day. Unfiltered urban air is introduced at the bottom of the facade, and air bubbles naturally rise through the watering medium within the bioplastic photobioreactors. CO2 molecules and air pollutants are captured and stored by the algae and grow into reusable biomass. Photosynthesized oxygen is then released from the top of each module. Terry Oxman and her team at the MIT Media Lab incorporates biological organisms to generate responsive and adaptable wearables. For the project Living Mustari, the wearable is constructed from a photosynthetic microbe, microalgae or cyanobacteria, and compatible microbes, Baker's yeast and E. coli, and converts sunlight into useful products for the user. Using microorganisms such as algae, mycelium, bacteria as raw material and looking at the processes and behaviors that are identified in these, new design tools can be developed aiming to produce a user-responsive system and hopefully more ecological environments. This project is looking at how the wearables can become a new layer of skin for the body and offer a continuous exchange of information between the body's physiologic information and the environmental conditions of the built environment. New forms of relationship between the built environment and its users are facilitated, which can allow for the possibility that the human can adapt or be adapted better to the environment by linking physical building architecture and wearable human architecture as one in the design process. How can, for example, these biowearables capture the CO2 and the air pollutants of the space and convert it into an output that will provide comfort to the body and may be used for signaling purposes? In this sense, biowearables can act like instruments. They can adapt to the body's changed physiological information and orchestrate to the change of the space's conditions such as air quality. A biological system that will lead to the users and space to adapt, transform, co-evolve will be developed while improving the interaction between human space. Different methodologies based on genetic protein engineering and synthetic biology can be used to construct microorganisms with the required signal outputs, sensitivity, and also selectivity. Bioluminescence and fluorescence from proteins, such as green fluorescent protein GFP, has likely existed in creatures such as jellyfish for millions of years. GFP is a protein which consists of 238 amino acids derived from the crystal jellyfish Icoria victoria. It has a fluorescent emission wavelength in the green portion of the visible spectrum and causes organisms to glow green when they are exposed in ultraviolet light. The air quality of the interior spaces depends on the users who inhabit them. When a space becomes crowded, the temperature, the humidity, air pollutants, etc. will change and vice versa. The users who inhabit the space will also respond to this change by the rise or drop of temperature, the change of their heartbeat, sweating. So far, we have been using devices such as air conditioning systems, dehumidifiers, to regulate the air quality of an interior environment, but without really taking into consideration the variable and changing needs of its user. The wearable prototypes are made of microorganisms and become the connecting homeostatic layer between the space and the human body. The tools for developing those wearable prototypes are 3D printing, digital fabrication technologies, as well as biosensing. The input for the wearables are nutrition, air, light, hydration. The output for the wearables is light and color for signaling purposes, or electricity and heat. The primary aim of this research study is to develop a system between the body and the space where a continuous exchange of information is facilitated in a way that each user works autonomously with the building as one experience. Since biomaterials will be used for the construction of wearables, the question of sustainability arises as a secondary investigation. Can the wearables provide a more ecological and sustainable way for the user to adapt and respond to the built environment and vice versa? Skylar Tibbetts, 2012, mentions that our industry should ultimately be moving towards sustainable and energy-producing rather than energy-consuming systems. His list of passive energy sources for self-assembly include heat and expansion and contraction of materials, fluids, capillary action or hydraulics, pneumatics, gravity, wind resistance, shaking, pre-post tension or compression members, and a plethora of other opportunities. The concept of life cycle analysis can offer a guide for critique. It can assist to the choice of the materials and the production processes that require less energy input, produce fewer toxic outputs, and can more quickly and readily decompose and return to full ecological use at the end of the life. Life cycle assessment considers 3 related types of inputs and outputs involved in the life cycle of any product. The first one is raw materials, beginning with where these materials are taken from the earth and how they are processed. The second one is cumulative embodied energy and includes the mass and type of materials used to provide the power. And the third one is outputs, not just the useful products, but also the wastes released, environmental pollution associated with the full life cycle, including the health risks facing workers who produce the product. Also, the acquisition of raw materials, according to Kogel 2018, manufacture and production, transportation, distribution to stores and users, operational use, maintenance, recycling is also considered in the life cycle assessment. To come close to living up to the claim of sustainability, materials, modes of design and productions should be selected that rely on abundant rather than increasingly rare earth materials, have low amounts of embedded energy in their life cycles, and emit low levels of pollution in the production and use, such as the overall use that does little harm to other species. The research study will consider a biodesign, lower-tech approach, which are the wearables, and will conclude with a critique on sustainability of the wearables based on the above parameters of the life cycle assessment. Thank you.